Rahman, journalist and research scholar. My conversation today is, as I said, about the history of Razakars. Why is there an unenforced code of silence of what happened in history? Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming to the podcast. I have been wanting to do podcast on the Razakar movement for a long time. Then I saw that the movie got done. I haven't seen the film. So let me put this out right in the beginning कि मैंने movie देखी नहीं है, picture देखी नहीं है. But you know, when the film came out, then I started talking to people. And then I realized that not many people know about it. And I was wondering that, is it my ignorance? Is it the people around me who are ignorant? Or was there some kind of, unsaid omerta code कि हम बात नहीं करेंगे? Because I know that जैसे when there is a blood-filled part of one's history, the elite of the society tend to clamp down and not talk about it, or those who have suffered rather not talk about it because खुरेदने से और दुख होता है. Ayoob साहब, I want to ask you, why, for especially for our younger audiences, expat audiences who have no clue or whose parents might not have spoken about it, just give me a kind of a timeline. Who were the Razakars? When was it formed? Why was it formed? And when was it disbanded? And why is there a silence about it?
In 1946, a person called Qasim Razvi, who came from Marathwada region, who was a lawyer, who was in Hyderabad, took over the charge of MIM or Majlis-e-Ittihadul Muslimin. Even at that time it was called Majlis-e-Ittihadul Muslimin. The name was changed in 1956 or so to All India Majlis-e-Ittihadul Muslimin, and that was accepted.
It was a political party then too?
It was a political party under the guise of a social organization. Okay. Because during the Nizam's time, there was no reason to have a political party except Nizam's will. So, in 1946, two things were happening at the same time. One is that the pressure from Delhi was increasing. You have to take a call, either you are with us or you have to make a settlement.
So this is, when you say Delhi, you mean Sardar Patel
Congress,
and Nehru.
Congress as such.
क्योंकि it's the first government उस वक्त.
वो अभी तक गवर्नमेंट में नहीं आए थे.
अच्छा.
क्योंकि 1947 में गवर्नमेंट में आए लोग, ठीक है. मगर ये दिल्ली से इनका जो कांग्रेस थी उसके साथ में जो कम्युनिकेशन था,
जो प्रिंसली स्टेट्स मर्ज हो रही थी.
हाँ, 600 के करीब में प्रिंसली स्टेट्स थे, जिसमें सबसे बड़ा जो था वो हैदराबाद था. और सबसे ज़्यादा जो रिच था वो भी हैदराबाद था. और इसका जो एरिया था वो भी सबसे ज़्यादा था. तो इट वॉज अ प्राइज दिस थिंग. तो निज़ाम जो थे उस ज़माने में, उस्मान अली खान, ही वॉज नॉट श्योर and he was under pressure from various quarters, and he was having dreams of keeping his domain as independent.
कि ना पाकिस्तान ना इंडिया इंडिपेंडेंट रहो.
जी हाँ, अभी तक वो पाकिस्तान और इंडिया की बात नहीं आई थी, मगर 1946 में भी उनका ये ख्याल था कि मुझे आज़ादी दीजिए. Because in 1857 I had become part of the crown, and the crown was recognizing me. So that will continue, but there were three powers which were not with me at that time: the military and aviation, and one more, postal service. So this was denied to him. He said, no, this is not going to happen. We have to talk to you. 47 happened. In 47 again the Indian government.
Wait, let me take you back a little bit. Didn't Jinnah Saab ask the Nizam to come with him?
That was happening, but that was a very bad episode with Jinnah.
क्या हुआ?
Jinnah came to Hyderabad and he sat with Usman Ali Khan with his legs folded on each side, and he took out a cigar and lit it. The Nizam said, the meeting is over, you can go.
तहजीब नहीं है. Out with you. Seriously?
No, this has happened. This is a recorded event. I'm not talking about anything which is not
My
there.
goodness.
क्या कह रहे साहब?
Yeah.
जी.
अच्छा.
ये बोलते this broke away their relationship.
That was it, huh?
हाँ.
And he.
You don't treat a Raja like this.
But do you think he did it purposely, Jinnah?
I don't think. He was not aware of Jinnah's eccentricities, Jinnah's self-belief that how important he is. Because at one time, he was being talked to as he was the Caliph of the Muslims across the world. And he had the connections with the Turkish princess. He had married Abdul Majid's daughter, Nilofer. No, not Nilofer, Dure Shehwar. And got it married to his
और
son.
फिर ये सामने बैठ
अब
के
ये सामने बैठ के कौन है ये? वो who is he?
तो
That kind of.
टॉक्स ब्रोक डाउन. तो फिर उन्होंने कहा कि जिन्ना के साथ नहीं जाऊंगा तो पाकिस्तान के साथ नहीं जाऊंगा. एंड आई वांट
वैसा नहीं डेवलप हुआ वो. जिन्ना के साथ तो उनकी बातचीत टूट गई, मगर वो प्रपोजल जो पाकिस्तान के साथ जाना था वो जिंदा रहा. मगर he did not give his opinion on whether I'll go with Pakistan or not. He clearly said on several occasions that I will remain independent of both of you. And he wanted to see how things move after that, and then we will decide.
तो कितनी देर तक ये चलता रहा?
From 1947 to 1948, September, where the Indian Army decided enough is enough.
ऑपरेशन पोलो.
Operation Polo was carried out in the name of something very, very polite, police action. So they called it police action, but they brought in the military and the air force and attacked Hyderabad from 5 corners. And they came in and they took over in 5 days. The entire thing was over. It started on September 13 and ended on September 17.
So where were the Razakars at this period?
They were in Hyderabad. The Razakars were the only people who tried to put up
A fight.
a resistance.
But who created and why was it created? Let me go back.
Okay. Now, Razakars had been created as a voluntary force, and there were thousands and thousands of them. The exact figure we do not have. Maybe Ayoob Sahab would be able to let us know if he knows. And Razakars were the volunteers who have been behaving as the rulers, and they were going to villages, attacking people, behaving this thing. But this Razakar movement, and then simultaneously there was a communist armed struggle. It is
वो भी
called
local ही
Telangana
थे.
Armed
हाँ,
हाँ
वो भी
बिल्कुल
local.
बिल्कुल. वो वरंगल के करीब में और खम्मम, ये दो जो डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स हैं, वहाँ पे लोग ज़्यादा एक्टिव थे.
तो they were
ये दोनों चीज़ें एक साथ चल रही थी आपके पास में. एक कम्युनिस्ट मूवमेंट, आर्म्ड स्ट्रगल, और एक रजाकार. Razakar were supposed to counter
the
communists, but Razakars were hired by the zamindars who were also Hindus, Reddis and Brahmins and all that. They were hired to protect their land from these kind of people, communists. So that was going on at that time. And Razakars played a very crucial role in that.
Now, what is the connection between the Nizam and the Razakars? What is that? उनका क्या connection था?
There is no formal connection with the Nizam and Razakars. Qasim Razvi was a leader of a political party which did not declare itself to be a political party, but MIM.
Okay.
It was there. He was the leader. And he was taking advantage of a weak and confused Nizam to declare Hyderabad as a Islamic state.
Take advantage बोले तो कैसे?
His weakness. लेके हैदराबाद को इंडियन यूनियन में मर्ज नहीं करना है और इसको इंडिपेंडेंट रखना है, और ये जो है इंडिपेंडेंट इस्लामिक स्टेट रहेगा.
Okay. So now to be an Islamic state, what were the steps?
Or a Muslim state, let's be.
चलिए, Muslim state. To keep it as a Muslim, a little piece which was different from the others, because they were surrounded by, I'm guessing, Hindu Rajas out there at that time, princely states of Hindus. So to keep that, the Nizam is supposed to have brought in even foreign players into this. So explain अब रज़ाकार movement में कितने type के रज़ाकार्स थे?
डॉक्टर पांडुरंगा रेड्डी जिन्होंने जो है रिसर्च की है सब्जेक्ट पर, और उस यूनिट के मेंबर थे कैप्टन पांडुरंगा रेड्डी, जिसने हैदराबाद में सबसे पहले प्रवेश किया था, मगर बाद में हुए वो उसके अंदर. So he was the press secretary to that unit, and he had access to all the information of that unit which took possession of Hyderabad and the Sikandrabad cantonment. So we are talking about an army man, we are talking about a highly literate person, and we are talking about a very, very honest kind of a, upright kind of an Indian, teacher to hundreds of students who have passed their IAS and so on. So this gentleman, he says that there were 4 types of Razakars. One were the Muslim people, college students just out of college, still in college, 15, 16-year-olds, and they were Razakaring, they were volunteering to defend Hyderabad against Indian invasion, because there were all the signs of India invading Hyderabad, even while there was a standstill agreement in place, even while there were negotiations going on in place. And British, the way they were, they are still, they had given everybody to understand everything that they wished to. So there were a lot of Indian princes who were harboring the notions of remaining independent. Travancore was a small state but a rich state, and it had already appointed a representative of itself in Karachi. He was named. Jaipur, by the skin of his teeth, escaped getting into Pakistan, otherwise they were agreeable. Patiala was offered a blank paper by Jinnah to just sign, to put in his terms. Like that, there were so many people who were wanting to remain independent, because British had transferred the power to India without transferring the paramountcy. So these were subject to the British paramountcy. So they were harboring dreams about having something of their own. But Hyderabad had very much agreed to go along with the Indian supervision of the foreign affairs and postal services and the railways and things like that, defense matters. But what happened in between is that when the Indian army, when the Hyderabad army returned from World War II, the government of India, very wisely, unwisely, or I don't know why, they did not give the armaments of the Hyderabad army, which belonged to the Hyderabad army. All the units had come. So Hyderabad was practically armless. So at that time, at that time, the communists were creating ruckus in particular districts of Telangana area. And when the Commander-in-Chief General Idrus was told to quell the rioting which is taking place, he said, I just don't have the means to do it. So people came in, volunteered. They are called Razakars. Mujlis was formed in 1927. Dr. V.K. Baba clearly states that it was a reaction to the actions going on all over Hyderabad state and beyond, and the instigations that were going on from across the border.
Across the border बोली तो कहाँ से?
कर्नाटका के bordering district से, बीदर, परभनी, बीदर, गुलबर्गा, रायचूर, महाराष्ट्र के bordering district से.
So who were the foreigners who came in, the Arabs and all? Why did they come in?
The foreigners in Hyderabad states are different people. Much before these foreigners, even the Sikhs had been requested to be sent in. Maharaja Ranjit Singh sent 2 battalions of Sikh battalions. They were paid by Maharaja Ranjit Singh till the time that he was alive. And they were here. And Nizam had very wisely brought in these Sikh people, martial people, fighter people, to be a buffer between the Arabs and the Pathans. He mentioned about 1 lakh Arab origin people staying in those areas. Most of them have come from Maratha states which got disbanded. The British, in their notoriety, the way they disbanded Nagpur, Satara, Jhansi, all of these Maratha states, they disbanded because they wanted those states under their control, because they would have their roads running from there. From Bangalore to Pune, they took away Satara. From Calcutta to Bombay, they took away Nagpur. From Bombay to Agra, they took away Jhansi. These were all games being played in the 19th century and 18th century. So in between, these Pathans, who were army men basically, had always been the fighter people for almost 800-900 years in India.
There was one massacre in which hundreds of people were killed.
Bairampalli.
Correct, Bairampalli. Haan. Some of the massacres which happened out there, it's hardly documented in the sense of history books में हम लोगों ने पढ़ा नहीं है school में about these incidents which happened. So I'd like to ask both of you that when these things happened, why was, who writes after all the books, the history? It's usually the elite who write it क्योंकि पढ़े लिखे वो ही होते हैं. So did the elite of that time gloss over this at that time because there was this admiration for the Nizam? So these massacres were not talked about, written about. Is that true?
नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है. You should look at the tragedy of Hyderabad from a different perspective. That the ruling class, which was mostly Muslim, they were butchered and massacred in a manner that the fear went down to the next several generations. Muslims, you ask any Muslim whose parents or whose grandparents have been affected by police action, they will tell you the details of what happened. So it's a folklore right now. So that was not a written down for one reason which I have been told by a scholar, that we want to live in India peacefully. हम वो ज़ख़म कुरेदना नहीं चाहते. We don't want it to green the wounds which we have suffered.
This is Operation Polo की आप बात कर रहे हैं?
ऑपरेशन पोलो के वक्त में जो massacres हुए उसकी बात कर रहा हूँ मैं.
There were also massacres on the Hindu community by
वो
the Razakars.
massacres की जो बात कर रहे हैं हम, वो एक दो जगह ज़रूर हुए हैं. massacres की बात नहीं हो रही है वहाँ पे, क्योंकि there were no massacres ऐसे. आप जैसा उस जगह का जिक्र करें आप, ऐसे दो तीन ही इलाके हैं. You know how many total people got killed in during the Razakar movement? The Hindus?
No.
817. And a Hindu Purushottam Das नहीं, कुछ और नाम है, वो लिखते हैं कि about 1000 people. So about 1000 people compare with Sundarlal Committee's report 40,000. So what are we talking about? We are talking, now that we have the media under control, we have the government under control, we will say anything we want to say. And we are saying it. We are making movies out of it. And trying to tell you the worst part that might have happened, part of it. If you tell the whole story...
No, you're talking about the movie Razakar, na?
Razakar, but that is the medium.
मैं movie की नहीं बात कर रही हूँ. And I'm not talking about a misrepresentation now. Misrepresentation इसलिए है because there was fog of war जो कहते हैं ना, जो जानते ही नहीं है लोग इस बारे में ना.
I'm trying to tell you there was no fog of war. There was a deliberate decision on the Muslim intelligentsia not to speak about it.
क्यों? किसने कहा ये?
किसने कहा? I can give you the names of the books.
नहीं, किसने कहा उनको, the Muslim intelligentsia, कि आप इस बारे में बात ना करें?
इसको आप self imposed कह सकते हैं by the circumstances. Though no Muslim was feeling safe at that time. Several thousand Muslims have been thrown out of jobs. Because majority of the Muslims were in government jobs.
Okay. You're talking about 19...
We are talking about 15% of Muslims even at that time. तो 15% में से अगर 40% आपके गवर्नमेंट एम्प्लॉइज मुसलमान हैं तो बहुत बड़ा नंबर हो गया.
हाँ. नहीं, आप इंडिपेंडेंस के टाइम बात कर रहे हैं?
मैं 1948 के ज़माने की बात कर रहा हूँ, उससे पहले की बात कर रहा हूँ.
Okay. Now, tell me about when the Nizam knew this was happening, उन्होंने रोका क्यों नहीं?
He had lost the authority. His authority has been appropriated by Qasim Razvi and his goons. And that fellow did not realize that it will turn against him. So you can call him a neutral person, or you can say that he got involved and remained silent by not doing anything against Qasim Razvi and the kind of talk he was doing. Qasim Razvi was saying that we will take over India and fly our flag on Red Fort.
Qasim Razvi को encourage किसने किया to have this kind of a rebellious streak and overarching ambition that he could deliver to his people? किसने उनको किसी ने तो दिया होगा ना ये encouragement.
देखिए, a very rational, very learned and very well-meaning kind of a public leader who could even question the Nizam, who could even throw a challenge to Jinnah. That leader at the very young age of 39 expired just like that under very suspicious circumstances. This was 1944.
Who are you talking about?
I'm talking about Bahadur Yar Jang. Bahadur Yar Jang, he was a public speaker and a great public speaker who even told the Nizam that, come, let me tell you what the functions of a king must be. That kind of a person. He quite unexpectedly expired in 1944. Then some lumpen elements started gaining strength in that party, which was formed for social causes.
MIM.
MIM. Formed for social causes in 1927, but nothing was happening till 1937. And from 1937, this party became proactive in reforming the society and even spreading their religion to the non-religious people, the tribals and so on. And at the same time, they were also inviting people from especially North India, from especially Western India, that you can come and settle here, this is going to be an independent country. But after his expiry, this man, a lumpen element, I would say, vainglorious kind of a person, full of himself, he took charge, and the volunteers who were coming for Bahadur Yar Jang invariably joined that person. And that person took command of those people, and he was using them for their advantage, young people. But mind you, that he was also using his own young sons. When they were going to the war front, he told the entire unit that you are going to a front where from you may not be coming back. But his sons were there in it.
Who crushed the Razakar movement?
The Razakar movement got crushed by its own weight because it was too splintered, too spread out and too non-centered.
मतलब कि कोई आइडियोलॉजिकल यूनिटी नहीं
वो
थी?
नहीं हो सकती थी उतने कम टाइम में, वैसा था ही नहीं, उनके पास वो मीन्स ही नहीं थे. लेकिन जो इंडियन आर्मी मूव हुई तो जो सबसे पहले मरने वाले थे, they were the only casualties really speaking from the Hyderabad army side. Some Pathans really got foolhardy and really went and lost their Sherman tanks and lost their lives, and those were the casualties. But fact of the matter is the Hyderabad General Commander-in-Chief had already told them quietly that you need to be retreating back and crushing back to Hyderabad. You don't need to really put up a brave resistance. So the first casualties from Indian Army side were those Pathans at the fort of Naldurg and those areas. But these Razakars who were running to the war front to save Hyderabad from invading Indian Army, they got splintered after the fall was done. They were singled out, they were hunted down, they were all taken under custody, and they numbered a good 15,600 and something, 54.
Qasim Rizvi gets arrested.
Yes. And you know what are the charges? Dacoity. That's all.
Not armed rebellion.
No. And he was given a sentence. He served an imprisonment of about 8 years, 9 years, and he was set free.
And he went off to Pakistan.
Before going back to Pakistan, he re-established, in a meeting he called, and re-established MIM. And MIM was re-christianed as All India Majlis-e-Ittihadul Muslimin. This happened in 1957, around that time, 56, 57. So that bugger just left without...
What did he do when he went to Pakistan?
Remained quiet. No talk.
He never tried to make a political party there?
No.
Or did the Pakistanis tell him, chup chap baithe raho yahan?
Pakistanis might have given him instructions that we don't want you to talk. अगर वो लोग इस्तेमाल करना चाहते इसको तो बोलते थे करो, और ये अगर करना चाहता अपने से तो शायद कर सकता था, मगर इसको मालूम हो गया था कि यू आर फिनिश्ड, यू आर नो, देयर इज नथिंग यू कैन डू अबाउट. प्लीज गो बैक टू द परसेंटेज ऑफ मुस्लिम्स इन हैदराबाद अगेन एंड अगेन व्हेन यू टॉक अबाउट दिस. 15% of the entire Hyderabad state, 15% were Muslims. So how can you fight 85% people? Why would you fight if the government is not siding with you? That was the time when government was with you. So you are fighting. You are thinking that you are whatever, big person. But that finished, that was punctured. तो ये 15% का एहसास मुसलमानों को उस वक्त हुआ कि जब पूरा चला गया. तो अब मुसलमान 1948 के बाद में एक अजीबो गरीब सिचुएशन में आ गया. रूल चले गया, हुकूमत चले गई, कोई पहचानने वाला नहीं रहा, जो दोस्त मदद करने वाले थे वो गायब हो गए, जो आपकी प्रॉपर्टी थी वो जब्त हो गई. He was crushed, finished. I am talking about Musalman. The Muslims of Hyderabad.
If I may just, I don't know whether this is a right argument or not, I don't know, I'm just asking. The Muslim rulers in India before the British came in, they were also minority rulers, but they ruled for over 500 years. They were also minority rulers.
Ma'am, those were the different times. The might was right at that time.
Who were not minority rulers? The Marathas in Madurai, were they not Maratha minority rulers?
Yeah, so that's what I'm asking.
The Sikhs in Kashmir or the Sikhs in
same
Kabul,
are
were they
also
not
minority, yeah.
The same thing I want to say, that was a time, different time, where might was right. Might was right was over in 1948.
Please let us not forget that in 1857, the Peshwa, exiled in Banaras, Rani of Jhansi, Tantia Tope, the celebrated general of Marathas, the Nawab Begum of Awadh, they were all fighting under the flag of the Mughal ruler who did not want to fight at all. He was too old, too weak, or so to say, they would think. But they were insisting that no, we would want your overlordship and we'll be fighting under your flag. So minority majority question comes up only with these kind of things which have cropped up.
Okay, another question which I want to ask is that there is one view that the victims of the Razakars were peasants and they were not the urban elite. Had it been the urban elite, though, there would have been a lot written. If the urban elite had been the victims of the Razakars, maybe their story would have got written about. Is that a right interpretation?
If here we are talking about Razakars from a Muslim perspective, the Muslim Razakar letting loose their reign of terror in rural areas on the peasants, hapless peasants. Let us not forget that there were Razakars of 4 types. The people who were the lat bearers, not sword bearers, lathed jisko bolte hain apne north mein. The people who were the supporters of the local Deshmukhs and Rajas and Zamindars, even the local Jagirdars, Muslim Jagirdars, they had let out their lands to these Deshmukhs only for sharecropping. So they were the local power there. Some research scholar from the Nizamabad University, Dalit scholar, he has very emphatically said that the top Hindu ministers of Telangana people in the Nizam's court were not allowing any information to get into the Nizam's court about the atrocities going on over there. So the atrocities...
तो वहाँ caste आ गया था.
Caste के अलावा domination, political domination of the ruling elite, which were the zamindars.
क्योंकि आप देशमुख कह रहे हैं तो हम
जी हाँ.
So I'm presuming कि एक तरफ आप religious वो देख रहे हैं, fighting देख रहे हैं, और दूसरी तरफ caste also played a role when you're talking about Razakars.
Economic basically economy.
Because land was only in the hand of the upper caste anyway. Yeah. Right? The peasants were of the lower caste anyway. So when there was no peasant uprising.
That is what was being brought in by the communists.
Achha.
That was in 46, around 46.
Okay.
That 1946 uprising was definitely in their group capacity locally, supported by the Razakars and the Razakar supporters of the Deshmukh, many of them Hindus. Mind you, it is General Chaudhary's words, Razakar by the day and communist by the night. Then, after 47, congressman by the day and communist by the night. Let us go into these reports are not...
That sounds horrific.
And there is much more to it. There is much more to it.
Yeah,
they are very layered, and one has to be very quietly observing these developments and then draw some conclusion. If I am a Muslim, I become emotional when I talk about the atrocities which have been
It
read
is
upon.
hard to, when there is so much of trauma involved, it's very hard to keep yourself away from it. I have spoken to many people who have witnessed or whose ancestors have witnessed this kind of trauma. It is very difficult to make an anodyne statement and कि मैं historian हूँ और मैं fact state करता हूँ. I well understand that, but I just want to ask you: have you in your families heard your elders talk about this incident, or did they just clam up?
His family has been a sufferer of the.
Could you tell me?
Yeah. There is one point which I would like to make in the beginning, that as a researcher and a journalist, I tried to remain as neutral as possible, trying to get myself emotionally out of the turmoil which my parents had suffered. Again, shall I tell you about the story which happened to my mother? My mother was living with her 4 kids, the youngest being 1.5 years old, who later became an Air Force officer. And she was attacked by a mob, particularly the servants, mostly the servants who were working for us. अम्मा, आप लोग यहाँ से निकल जाइए. अगर आप नहीं निकलेंगे तो दूसरे गांव के लोग वो करेंगे, हमको अच्छा नहीं दिखेगा, आप लोग हट जाइए. So my mother grabbed a few things from the home and she came out and stood a few meters from her home. ठीक है, जो सेलू के पत्थर छत के तौर पे इस्तेमाल होते थे, we are called local stones, and there was another room. So she left everything, she grabbed a few things, put in a thali, and then came and started saying, अरे मलया तू है रे, अरे तेरे को मालूम, अम्मा, दोरानी अम्मा, हमको करने दो, नहीं करे तो हमको मारते लोग. They were pleading her to kill, to destroy her property, and she understood the atmosphere, and she said, she didn't say anything. So they put a fire.
To your house?
Of course. The entire house started. When it started, the stones started cracking. She decided to leave with a group of other local villagers, Muslims. About 15 of them made a caravan and left that in the dead of the night at around 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Where did they go? Where did they have to go? Where was their destination? They had no idea. They had to disappear from that scene. Because if they were caught, the mob could have done anything to them. So this is the story of my mother, which she used to tell again and again and describe us, and which I tried as a grown-up person, when I tried to tally this with the other stories of the people, it fitted perfectly well. Yes, this has happened. And it is the same village. You see, there is again a change, psychological change, physical change. After about 3 months, my mother goes back to the village again to see what is left of what was there. And she decides, my mother was a tigress. She decides that this fellow was there. This fellow was there. She goes into her house or his house, brings back the utensils which they had taken away. She was the only person who could do that. She was a sherni. Nobody touched her, nobody came to her. By that time, the whole atmosphere had boiled down. It was, cool at that time. There was no harm. They could do that. She could do it at least. So this she used to tell us, and then you will be surprised. I went to that village again and again, several times, and I found that this is my father's friend, this is my father's friend. They were all Hindu Patels and Patwaris and all that, and they treated me like their own son.
उस वक्त क्या हुआ था फिर? क्यों नहीं उस वक्त?
फ्रेंजी. आप जब किसी मॉब का हिस्सा हो जाते, कभी एटमॉस्फेरिक मॉब का हिस्सा हो जाते, तो यू बिकम वन ऑफ देम. दिस हैपेंस विद मुस्लिम्स, हिंदूज, एनीबडी. दिस डज नॉट स्पेयर एनीबडी. आप पूरे पार्टीशन के कहानियां पढ़िए, आपको यही मालूम होगा. कि वो जो एटमॉस्फेयर है दैट सक्स यू इन.
लॉजिक डजंट अप्लाई.
नहीं 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 नहीं, देयर इज नो लॉजिक इन दिस. आप तमस पिक्चर देखिए, आपको उसमें अंदाजा हो जाएगा कि क्या लॉजिक कहाँ है. यू आर किलिंग एन अपाहिज, एक लंगड़े हिंदू नौकर को जो आपके पास छोड़ के गया है, आपका हिंदू नेबर. यू डिसाइड कि वो भी मर गया मुसलमान, वो भी मर गया मुसलमान, मैं इसको क्यों छोड़ूं. तो वाइल ही वॉज ट्राइंग टू क्लाइम डाउन, दैट फेलो गिव्स अ पुश एंड दैट फेलो कम्स रोलिंग डाउन एंड डाइज. तो ये जो मॉब फीलिंग है ना, उसको थोड़ा सा अपने को समझने की ज़रूरत है. और वो मॉब फीलिंग को क्रिएट करने वाले भी हैं आपके पास में. तो इट्स अमेजिंग, यू नो, इट्स अमेजिंग. आई स्टिल गो टू दैट विलेज. एज लेट एज लास्ट ईयर आई वॉज देयर एंड यू नो पीपल वर मीटिंग मी वेरी नाइसली एंड ऑल दैट.
तो जहाँ पे इतना कॉन्फ्लिक्ट और ट्रॉमा होता है, उसका रेमनेंट्स रह जाता है. चाहे हम पंजाब की बात करें, चाहे हम बंगाल की बात करें, हम कश्मीर की बात करें. क्या हैदराबाद एरिया में, मतलब तेलंगाना, आंध्र प्रदेश का देखें, क्या वो ट्रॉमा एलिमेंट रह गया था?
दिस वेरी लर्नेड एंड left-leaning lady who was very active in politics and who's into publishing business now, she said that I came to Hyderabad as early as 1960 and much earlier than that, and I studied for so many years in the university, and I am shocked that not one word of the police action or the things which happened in police action was ever brought before me. A curious-minded person, an inquisitive person, a research kind of a person. So what happened was there was a deafening silence from not just the Muslims but also from the media people.
Terror, it was there.
Now, if I were to quote only Mahatma Gandhi, maybe it will din some weightage to the matter, but nobody is one bit aware of the ethnic cleansing which practically happened in 1946 in Jammu region. Mahatma Gandhi has said that. It is a shame and Maharaja should declare he should actually hand over power to the Muslims. This is all on record. So when you talk of Bayrampalli and why this happened, we have first got to ascertain as to who were the people who were doing it. There were a lot of Razakars, but Razakar who? Razakar in police caps? Razakar in the क्या बोलते हैं उनको, home guards from across the border, Razakars in Khaddar from Congress party, Razakar of the Deshmukhs, Razakars of the Qasim Razvi variety. There was a lot which was happening.
Armed groups or militia had a free run of this region. From which period to which period आप कहेंगे?
I would say 1946 to 1951. But by 1947 that was very much brought under control, though Nizam was very badly handicapped. Because there was no armaments, enough armaments, and there was a lot of turmoil all over India, and there were various kinds of fears, this thing. And Nizam was already undergoing this, Hyderabad was undergoing this severe embargo on it with the standstill. Even the chlorine water for cleaning water, purifying water, chlorine was not being made available.
You were saying that he was considered the protector of the Islamic faith or Muslims, right? He was seen as that, and then
he was seeing himself, and there are lots of people who were seeing like that. So, do you think that overpowering personality that he was, is it because of that that people didn't talk about what happened during his reign? Was it because of that? Ma'am, you should remember that he himself showed the Muslims that I have changed. In 1951 or 52, he wrote a poem in praise of the democracy in India for January 26. 26 January के दिन he wrote a poem in praise. So as Nizam had changed himself and safeguarding his own assets and all that, whatever was left, he was not bothered about Muslims, and Muslims did not go to him. There was an absolute disconnect.
Then who was his admirer? These were the elite of India.
Elite of India and elite of Hyderabad, who benefited from them. The Reddys, the Brahmins, the Muslims, they were all, impressed. साहब की हुकूमत बहुत अच्छी थी, अरे वो साहब की हुकूमत में हमको बहुत आराम था। आज भी बोलते हैं, आज भी बोलते हैं। पुराने हिंदुओं के घरों को आप चले जाइए, बोलते कि नहीं, निज़ाम की हुकूमत जैसी थी वैसी हुकूमत नहीं आ सकती। तो एक
So the elite protects itself always.
I would say, and protects it and affects the thinking of middle class, lower middle class
Exactly.
people. And I try, as a lower middle class, I try to copy them.
You want, I guess that is a universal thing, to want validation from the elite, always. And in that there is a conspiracy
I am
of
validating
silence.
their perspective, in fact.
Yeah, so
They are not validating my perspective. I am
it never
validating
happens.
as a poor man.
It never happens the other way around.
Yeah.
And because of that need for validation, you try to become like them. I mean, the peasant class now is no longer the peasant class, but it comes out and then it continues with the same malpractice that the urban elite did of that time. Is that right? Would you agree with that?
The peasant would come out and behave like the same elite
Yeah.
landowning class.
Yeah. Would you say that? Because it has, even though it fought it, it wants that same kind of sophisticated lifestyle.
I would say
And
that
thought
it very
process.
much happened. The leaders of the peasant class, the leaders of the people who were mobilizing the peasants against so-called Nizam's rule, it was against the atrocities of the local Deshmukh, local Zamindar. The issue was too localized. Only 2 districts were greatly involved. The districts were bordering the Andhra region. Andhra region was part of the Madras Presidency. Madras Presidency was dominated by Tamil Brahmins. So caste systems, caste equations were very much at play all the time. So when these people, they were instigating the local people, for very good reason, mind you. There was the system of Veti over here in Hyderabad also. It has been there for 2000
What
years.
is it? The system of?
Yeah, that is the whole thing, that people like, even like us, we don't know about Veti.
What is Veti?
Veti is forced labor which you have to do for the landlord. Even if you are having to crop your own fields, you have to leave that and go to his service. If his daughter is getting married, you have to leave your pregnant wife and go and do service to him.
अभी भी है.
वो थी, very much अभी भी होती है. आप behavior उनका देख लो जाके गाँवों में. लेकिन this was going on for 2000 years. So the people.
वो land reforms के बाद.
हमारे ज़माने में उसको bonded labor कहते हैं.
अच्छा, okay.
हाँ, वो जो आप जो फरमा रहे ना, वो शक्ल बदल के bonded labor हो गया.
Bonded labor, okay. You know, I'm going to be airing this after the elections because I don't want this kind of conversation. So I'm going to be airing this show after the elections. The accusation made by the right-wing parties or the non-Muslim parties, if I want to say, is that the AIMIM has not been able to divorce itself from the connections with the MIM. Is that true?
I don't believe.
No.
Absolutely no.
It's completely different.
You take 10 statements of Asaduddin Owaisi from the parliament and see how much Indian he is or Indianness he shows. How can he have the chips of the old bloc and still be an MP from Hyderabad? The problem is he has to swear by himself again and again to say, I am a Muslim, I am an Indian, I am a Muslim, I am an... What the hell is this? I am an Indian. Whether I am a Muslim or a Christian or a Hindu doesn't matter as far as I am concerned. But I have to say it because I am a Muslim. Even Asaduddin Owaisi has to say this. If Asaduddin who has to reassert himself that I am a Muslim, what about the people at the lower level?
If you ask for my take on it, I would say that in 1958, I think Qasim Razvi was released from prison. He was kept under most atrocious conditions. He was a political prisoner. He could have not been kept that way. But if there was a murder charge on him or atrocity bank looting charge on him, the real people who looted banks got away with it, and they are very big names, mind you. It's all recorded. It is there in the archives, still available. But the release of Qasim Razvi, because he couldn't be held any longer, he was released, but he was allowed the opportunity to call to his party members and talk about reviving the party. My take on it is, I am a student of Indian history, and culture also I try to read as much as possible. My take is that there was no compulsion as such for Qasim Razvi to be doing that, unless that was one part of the condition. That party was revived whole day long from up till 10 o'clock in the night. Meeting went on. 10 people were offered the presidentship of this party. It was declined. So nobody wanted to be part of MIM. But finally, when there was nobody coming forward, Mr. Asad's grandfather, he said, yes, I'll. But why this happened is because the Congress, in its wisdom, did not want the communists to gain the upper hand, the leftists to gain the upper hand. Hyderabad was a city of teeming with educated people. Urdu was the reading language all over. The Progressive Writers Association was blazing out one poetry after the other, one short story after the other. So if the unemployed Hyderabad youth would have gone the left way, then there was Congress would have really had it. They would not be able to survive. So these are the facts, that Bairampalli murders and all that, they need to be understood as to exactly who were committing it. The Razakars risking their lives would kill those people, innocent people who were hapless all the time. They would have done something here in the cities where there were, our Rajas were better than so many Maharajas, mind you. Maharaja Kishan Parshad was the only Maharaja in the whole of India who was a Maharaja but not a His Highness.
Tell me, has our generation been, have we made that mistake in not teaching our children about the history of the area where they were born and what their ancestors were about? Have we made that mistake?
You should never disconnect your people or the next generation from your history. Whether it is bad or good, own it and tell them this has not been done. My children do not know as much I know about what happened in police action. So this will go away. The Muslims, why did they keep quiet? What was the reason? They felt that there will be reprisal again. They will be beaten up again for talking. And they had no protection. Who would protect them? The Congress, which is suspected of colluding with the communal elements, the Arya Samaj and the Hindu Mahasabha. They were the ruling, organizations at that time. So who would you go to?
So you kept quiet.
You were forced to keep. You took a conscientious decision.
Okay, that is the Muslims. What about the Hindus? Why didn't they?
Why would they talk about it, boss? एक हो गया, खत्म हो गई बात, छोड़ो ना.
They had their sympathies with their Muslim brethren. They were at their own level. They were helping their Muslim brethren like crazy, for escorting them right up to the border till Pakistan. Hindu friends have done that for Muslim friends.
There was no rupture in the Hindu-Muslim relationship. Please mind this.
Not a single bullet was fired in Hyderabad, mind you. Such a big upheaval took place. That speaks of the bonhomie that was there. But if people are wanting to playing up, especially with falsehood, they can play up the Razakar. Our children do not really need to know about Razakars or anything. It could have all been forgotten.
When we have not told, why are you telling that story? We are the sufferers. If 50,000 of Muslims have been killed, we should have been talking about it. You are talking about one incident, two incidents, and trying to make it a big thing. For whom? What is your purpose? Your purpose is to delineate Muslims, make them come as conspirators, as criminals, as occupiers. They are not your friends, they are not your brothers. But on the ground level, he has several Hindu friends, I have several Hindu friends, and we are proud of them. And they protect us, we protect them, we participate in their everything, and they come to us. There is nothing we
So
can...
then why are you saying that we should tell our children, good or bad, whatever our history is?
No, I am not taking this example. I am saying that your children should be aware of what has happened with Hindus, with Muslims, with Sikhs, with Sharnardhis, whoever it is there.
So what you're saying is that the misrepresentation
Should
not
stop.
be. Okay, that I get.
To do that,
But
you have to tell the story. Who will tell them? The truth, if you feel that what you are trying to say is the truth, You have to tell your children, look, this has happened, but this is not happening right now.
If there is one book which misrepresents, should there be another book or should that book be banned?
Ma'am, I am too old now and I have been observing and reading the world quite closely.
When I say book, it could be a movie, it could be a serial, it could be anything.
There are attempts which are being made to write history, to revisit the whole scenario in a proper, honest manner without supporting this group or that group. This is happening, and I'm sure in the next 10 years you would see lots of books coming up. I know some people are already working on it.
Right.
One last thing to prove my point, that the British students, they should be so proud of their history. The sun never set in their empire. They are not one bit aware of what happened in the colonies. Even the 12th grade student doesn't know a damn thing. Shashi Tharoor has said that. So if it can happen over there, it can happen over here. We have a lot to hide. They have a lot to...
Well, we should learn from the wrongdoings of other countries and not make the same mistakes, I feel. But this has been an illuminating conversation, because I've got another perspective which I didn't know about, and hopefully the audience will get instigated to read up a little more and get to know the truth.
They should do that. I had come with a full bag of books just to prove my point if needed. But whatever I have said, each and every word of it can be substantiated through the writings of very well-meaning, good research people.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you for watching or listening to this edition of the ANI podcast with Smita Prakash. Do like or subscribe to the channel